Good morning, everyone. Here we are, another week. Holy cow, another milestone. It's like, did you ever notice like a week feels like another milestone in and of itself right now till we get through this? We're here. We are excited that you guys are joining us. Good morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning, afternoon here.
Yeah, well, welcome and welcome to everybody. It is the real HR show, not to be confused with the sweetened artificial version of it. But
We should make one of those too.
it doesn't cause. That's right. It's cheap. It's inexpensive. It's good for you, and it doesn't cause cancer.
There you go. Wow. Ooh. Except maybe in California where everything causes cancer.
But, yeah, kind of like you ever notice if you look something up on Doctor Google, you'll die.
Yeah, every time.
Yeah,
Every time.
like you get a hangnail and Doctor Google, you'll die. It's amazing. Anyway, my name is Brenda Neckbottle. I am known as Brenda the HI Lady, and right there next to me is Suzanne Lucas, also known as the evil. Oh, you did it right. She's known as the evil HR lady. And we are here today to talk about a very critical topic. And I think it's going to be on top of everyone's mind here soon, especially as this event starts to move closer. And it's not year end, it's not Thanksgiving, it's not Christmas. It's a whole new present in and of itself. And that is what happens when a vaccine comes out. Is there is chatter about this now starting to happen. We're getting closer. And you guys have to know what it is that you're going to do and how you're going to deal with it when it comes through, because a lot of people are getting creative how they deal with stuff right now. And we want to make sure that you're not getting that creative.
Yeah, and we want to make sure that we're on top of things and prepared. And if you missed the announcement last week, pharmaceutical company Pfizer announced that their vaccine in trials has been 90% effective. Now, I need to do a little disclosure here. I have technically worked for Pfizer. And I say technically because I worked for Wyeth Pharmaceuticals, and Pfizer bought out Wyeth. But before all of the everything was finalized, I quit to move to Switzerland. So if you look on my LinkedIn, it says I worked for Pfizer, although I never technically got a paycheck from them. But there you go. So I just want to be clear because I mentioned Pfizer's thing that I used to work for them, kind of. But I do still know a ton of people in their HR department because we had a really great HR staff. So instead of firing everybody from Wyeth, they kept a whole bunch of people because we were awesome.
There you go.
There you go.
There you go. So, yeah, so I've had, last week I had several conversations, on this very subject, which by the way, I want to thank everybody who attended our HR summit last week. It was a fantastic success. I had a lot of phenomenal feedback coming from everybody that attended, and it was great. Suzanne, and thank you for doing it because you just absolutely crushed it.
It was
People loved
super
it.
fun, and I'm sorry I missed some of the days because unfortunately, I have to work. But it was really fantastic, a huge group, and hopefully we'll do this again sometime.
Actually, yes. And matter of fact, yes, absolutely. So Suzanne and I are talking about doing something together. I'm going to continue doing it. And I think it's going to be awesome. So anyway, so back to our conversation, because we will get totally distracted, especially today. um, so this was a conversation that I know I had quite a bit last week. I can't talk about the project that I'm working on, but it was actually part of a project. And there's a lot of discussion around what employers could be doing, thinking about doing, what the government may or may not do as far as mandating. And it's just, it's wild. So let's get the conversation started on that. I think the first thing that people need to consider, and people being employers, is to just take a pause and really look into the legal ramifications on this. And one of the questions that most employers are going to have is, can they mandate vaccinations for their employees? Would you like to kick that one off?
Well, it's definitely a question that has been up in the air, and people
Yeah.
have been asking and talking about it. And I think the answer to that is it depends. And
Like everything else in HR.
like everything else, it depends. Now let's bill people for that advice.
Yeah.
But it really depends on what your business is, and if there is a real need. You're going to have a much stronger case for hospital personnel to be mandated to take
Yes.
the vaccine than you are for your accounting firm.
Yes.
And it's the nature of what you do. And I also want to throw in there, for the record, I'm super pro vaccine. I've been vaccinated for everything I should be vaccinated for. And I'm hesitant because it's new.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And yeah,
So
go ahead.
don't think, oh gosh, my employees are hesitant. They're wild conspiracy theorists. I mean, heck, I even have the tick-borne encephalitis vaccine, which I'm betting most of you don't have, but I have it because I hike a lot. And there's going to be people that are nervous because it's new and we don't know everything, and it was really fast-tracked.
Yep. Big time fast track. And usually it takes a drug. You've been in pharma long enough. Usually it takes a drug at least easy without thinking twice and actually going back and doing the research anywhere between 6 to 10 years to get
Yeah.
out.
Absolutely. And there were a lot of, background stuff already prepared for this, because coronaviruses themselves are well known.
Yeah.
And so it's not like they were starting from scratch. But
Right.
yeah, usually the testing phase takes years. And
Yeah.
we've gone from start to a recommendation in 10 months. And that is crazy fast. And fingers crossed that Pfizer is right. And if they are right, then I'm really sad I no longer have any stock. But sadly, I no longer have any stock.
Yeah. So let's take a look at what you were just talking about. And that is, you are an argument for healthcare and the reason why. So let's take a look at bloodborne pathogens, for instance, right? So healthcare workers in general, and that can also include anybody in the field of EMS, fire, police, emergency response, ambulance transportation, teams. They're more susceptible to bloodborne pathogens than anybody else. Anybody working in healthcare, needle pricks and sticks and stuff like that. All that's going to happen. It's just not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And so therefore there are certain things that they have to be inoculated for. Like for instance, hepatitis is one at the very top of the list. And an employer can make an argument that they can require those types of vaccinations and protections for their employees, and their employees are obligated to keep up with them and to prove that they've done it because of the high risk factors that are involved with bloodborne pathogens. You're talking about, aside from hepatitis, you're looking at the HIV virus, and you're looking at AIDS, right? The things that can get transferred over relatively quickly. Those are pretty horrible things to contract. Those are things you don't get over. You'll have it forever. Whereas a virus is something that, even though, yes, we do know that COVID does complicate things a little bit more, a virus eventually, will be overtaken by the body, and then you'll have the antibodies in place. So yeah, that argument is there, but that it doesn't mean that employers should be running around saying, hey, I want to, implement this because, I'm afraid my employees are going to start breathing on people or whatever. It's like, you have to have a legitimate reason. And it could also complicate things, because if you are deeming your employees to somehow get a like a physician to sign off on doing a vaccination, well, then you have to have the right mechanisms in place and the right reasons in place for somebody to go and do a fit for duty test. And the reason being, and we'll jump all over this here in a heartbeat and just tear this up, is that you got a couple of things that you're looking at. You're looking at violations against American with Disabilities Act, which will be discriminatory. You're looking at individuals who are pregnant and could have conflicting opinions about vaccinations, and also for religious beliefs as well. So there's no easy answer to this. So which one would you like to take?
Well, for the medical side of thing, like you said, with pregnancy or with disabilities, I'll talk about that because this is part of the problem with a brand new vaccine is there's not going to be a doctor out there that says, oh, you have lupus, this will be fine for you. Or, oh, you have lupus, this will not be fine for you. Or this is a good thing to take while pregnant versus this is a bad thing to take while pregnant.
Right.
Because I'm guaranteeing their studies haven't looked at that. I mean,
Yep.
I just made that part up that they haven't, but with a 10 month from start to saying we have this, they haven't looked at that. And that's not because the pharmaceutical companies are being bad. And I've mentioned Pfizer, but there's a whole bunch of other ones that are working on this as well. It's just been really rapid. And so when you have somebody come to you and say, look, I'm pregnant, or I have this disability, or I have that disability, I don't feel comfortable doing it. My doctor doesn't feel comfortable doing it. And it may not even be something that qualifies them normally under ADA protection because it's not severe enough. But to come out as, an accountant and say, yes, but you sit in a cube, you need to take this. That's not going to be a position that I'm going to support. Now, if we're talking about in a hospital, typically during flu season in hospitals, what their rule is that you have to get the flu vaccine. But if you have a legitimate medical or religious reason for not getting it, you just have to be masked the whole time. And I could see that type of a thing in healthcare. I don't see that even in non-healthcare.
Right.
And as far as what the government is going to do, we don't know. And
government doesn't know.
The government doesn't know.
They don't know.
I don't think anybody is hiding the plan from us. I think that there is no plan.
No, everybody's holding off on their position. Like the EEOC and OSHA, they don't have a position on this right now. And matter of fact, Sherm wrote about this in an article a couple months ago. That there's nothing to do right now but wait. And we're all in this hurry up and wait mindset right now.
Right. And there's been some talk about, okay, the government's going to require it if you want to travel or whatever. I don't actually see the US government doing that.
No, I don't either.
But if they do, that's a bridge we'll cross. In which case, you'd have to consider for your employees that travel for work. But I think this past year has taught us that there's a lot of business travel that doesn't actually need to happen. That's also taught us what business travel does need to happen and how important some face-to-face things are for sure. But I think that gets a little bit too conspiracy theory. I can't see the US government doing it. And from where I sit, I can't see the Swiss government doing it.
Yeah.
I can't see the EU doing it. And so I don't think that's going to be an issue that we have to deal with, but they will have to deal with people who don't feel comfortable or whose doctors don't feel comfortable. And, I talk about people saying this, but doctors are going to be saying the same thing. If I'm a doctor and there's no data on this, do I really feel comfortable giving this shot to my pregnant patients? And I'm guessing the answer is going to be no. But I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I could see that some doctors will definitely be saying no. Yeah. And as employers, we shouldn't ever override someone's physician.
No, and we can't. And not to mention, as employers are not legally entitled to any of your medical information, period. And that would also include certain levels of information as it pertains to a workers' compensation claim. So for them to come back and say, well, you need to provide me a medical reason as to why you can't, they can't do that. The other thing I want to touch on here real quick, great call outs on that, by the way, Suzanne, thank you. Another one I want to call out is the religious belief. Okay, let's talk about that one for a second. There's a lot of religious factions that are out there that have very strict guidelines on what a believer or a follower of that particular religion can and can't do. For instance, Jehovah's Witnesses, they can't take a blood transfusion, right? There's also, what's another one? Scientology. They've got very strict religious beliefs around medical treatment. And also, you're not entitled to know what somebody's religion is. And so, that complicates things. And anybody can go ahead and add and just tell you that's like, hey, listen, I'm not going to do this because this is what I believe. That's an exception that you have to adhere to. Okay. That is an absolute reasonable accommodation. That
the standard is a sincere religious belief. And so
right.
You can't even answer back saying, but you're Presbyterian and the Presbyterians are okay with this. That's not what you can respond with. It's their sincere
yes
belief.
Yeah, exactly. So the other thing that you guys need to also be mindful of is how this is going to impact in a collective bargaining agreement. Because if a company is unionized, and if the collective bargaining agreement doesn't have it in there to mandate vaccines, then it needs to go through that process. And then public sector employees, private sector employees. There's also different jurisdictions that take place as well. So there's no easy answer to this. And with the exception of, don't get creative if you are an employer or work for an employer who wants to mandate this because you just want to make sure that you're not going to get it or your people aren't going to get it because it's, it being COVID. And that is, look, mandating vaccines, it's a hot topic right now. It really, really is. And companies are getting concerned around this, but there's so many things that you have to be careful about because you could find yourself in court very, very quickly on any of these things.
You don't want to find yourself in court. And this has been, the balance I've been doing for the last, 4 months, a weekly back to work COVID webinar. And a lot of it is about this balance between protecting your employees and protecting your business and protecting the income of the business, because all of those things are important. And there's a huge difference from saying, hey, look, this COVID vaccine is available. So on Tuesday, we're having the county health department come in. And if you want to get a vaccine, come, sign up on this Google Doc and you can come down and sign up. Then there is on Tuesday, the county health department is coming in and you will get a vaccine.
Right.
The former, I will help you write up your signs, get your language right, make sure that it's compliant with everything. That's no problem. The latter of you will, I'm going to be like, let's call your local employment attorney who will tell you not to do this.
Right.
Unless, again, your healthcare thing, which is a different category.
Yep.
And we have to treat these two things differently. A hospital versus, and I've been using accounting, but really anything, a fast food restaurant, a retail store, a HR consultancy.
Well, and don't forget, what's also true about a hospital is that a lot of nursing staff, units are actually unionized. And so they're going to have this written into their collective bargaining agreement. And so if you think about it, under the National Labor Relations Act, if employees collectively are pushing back on to employers on mandating a vaccine, it's very likely that they're going to automatically receive protection under the National Labor Relations Act because it could be construed as a protected and concerted activity. Being able to say no, because a concerted activity just means that there's more than one person involved. So if you have a lot of employees that are pushing back, you're more than likely going to wind up running into NLRA, even if you are not, unionized.
And I think that's a really important thing. And I love the fact that you defined concerted right there, because
Mhm.
concerted sounds like it has to be formal, but it's not. It's
It
just that
doesn't.
you've got at least two employees talking about it.
Right.
That becomes concerted. And I wish we would use a different word. I don't know a different word, but because concerted people think that's something that's more than it is. But a concerted activity is two employees sitting down and saying, hey, what
Mhm.
about this? I'm not comfortable. And also, it can be two employees talking about it on Facebook or on Twitter,
Yeah.
or you can have concerted efforts off of the work site.
Yep.
You can have concerted efforts on um, on social media. And this is something that the extent to which that's enforceable has kind of been flexible lately with the NLRB. But the it's likely, if Biden takes the presidency in January, which all signs point to that, but we'll see. The NLRB will slowly go more towards freedom for employees on social media. So, but right now, I'm telling you flat out, two people talking about it on Facebook, that's concerted activity as long as both of them are employees. And the courts have even held that they don't have to be talking about it, they just need to be friends. So employee A posts about it and they're friends with employee B, and then it becomes a concerted activity.
Yep.
So keep that in mind as well. You don't want to fall into the crosshairs of the National Labor Relations Board.
No, they'll invite their cousins in to look at you too.
Oh my gosh.
Their
Yeah.
EOC, their second cousin, OSHA. I mean, they're all come in, take a look and see what's going on and rattle your chains a little bit. And you don't want that. That's a good way of putting it.
You don't want that. And also, just a little bit of advice. If they do show up at your door, the first thing you do is say, can I get you something to drink, and have a seat? And then you go into the back and you call your employment attorney and say, I need you to get down here right now.
Yeah. Like quick.
But you can offer them a cup of water or a cup of coffee, but
and a donut. They like this. So if you guys have been considering the possibility of offering this vaccine to your employees, let's talk about that for just a few minutes. And this is where you're going to wind up getting some push and pull on this. So it is my opinion, and I don't know, Suzanne, if you have a different one or not. I think you can encourage employees to go speak to their physicians about obtaining the vaccination. However, I would not take the advice that some people may have about providing the vaccine at no cost unless it is done through your healthcare plan. And the reason why I say that is that if you pay for any medical treatment, medical process out of your pocket that is not related to a workers' compensation claim or is not produced through your healthcare benefits program, you're going to own the outcome of that treatment for the rest of the employee's life. And God help you if it goes sideways, because those are $1 million expenses, and you don't want to own that.
No, you don't want to own that. And I would definitely coordinate with your health insurer.
Yeah.
And again, we don't know what the government policies are going to be.
Absolutely.
And if there's going to be a difference between the state coming to you and saying, all businesses that would like to have somebody come to their office and provide that sign up is different than you saying, I would like to provide this.
Right.
And so these again, and while I hate to say it, I will say it, you need to be speaking with your employment attorney. And the thing is you can't even speak to them today because the rules and regulations aren't out yet.
Well,
and the vaccine isn't even approved yet. And like I said, Pfizer was big in the news, but there's a lot of companies out there that are making similar progress.
Yeah.
And so, it's going to really depend on what happens and what your state says, what the federal government says, and then there's even the availability. Yep. You may say, I want everybody to get vaccinated, but there's not going to be vaccines available to your everyday non-healthcare person for 2 years. Who knows?
Yep.
I mean, when you think about the population of the world, to get that many doses of vaccine out is it's crazy.
Yep.
It's crazy. And so, you know, the young and healthy are not going to be a high priority. The highest priority are going to be healthcare workers.
Yep.
And people who are high risk. But again, you know, we know high risk for age, but high risk for medical conditions, do we have the safety statistics on that? And my answer to that is probably not.
No.
So it's really, we may be planning all this and it may be another year and a half before there's enough vaccine available for you to even go down this road.
And it's possible even at that time we would get the herd result, and most people have had, contracted COVID and built the antibodies to begin with. So, I mean, that's what time does.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that really makes it difficult, is for the past, 11, 10 months since this pandemic started, HR has been in this constant change.
Yeah, there you go.
There's nothing, there hasn't been a day when we're like, I know what I'm doing. Everything is fine. There's nothing new. And we're not even there yet. If this vaccine or another vaccine comes out, it doesn't mean that, okay, phew, we have a vaccine, everybody gets a shot, and then we all go back to normal. It's going to roll out. And we're going to see some of the side effects from this vaccine are, similar to flu shot side effects, which means that some people have no side effects whatsoever. Some people get headaches. Some people feel sick. We don't know long-term things. So it's not going to be this solution. If you're like, have on your calendar circled, crossing off the days till a vaccine comes out and then think your life will go back to normal, that's not happening. It's still going to be this constant change that we in HR have to deal with. And you're going to have executives screaming at you because they want to give everybody the vaccine. And then you're going to have other executives screaming at you because they think it's all a hoax.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, these people still exist, and they end up in my inbox with these CEOs that refuse to even wash their hands or to use hand sanitizer, or demanding that everybody be in the office, even in jobs that can easily be done from home, because it's all this conspiracy. And, the saying goes, if you believe in conspiracy theories, you've obviously never worked on a group project. If you could get all the world's health and government authorities to agree, wow, that's quite the conspiracy.
And there's still something that's going to happen that we haven't even talked about yet, is that once these vaccines come out, just like anytime we have a new law that comes out, I mean, look what happened with, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, right? I call it the Family First Act. Suzanne calls it FFCRA. Some people call it FFRCA, whatever, right? You have to realize that when something new comes out, that like in HR, when we have a new law that rolls out, it goes and it gets litigated. And that's how we actually build our best practices, is because there's so many yeah buts and what ifs, because like I mentioned before, and I'll say it every single time, is that the government, they just make a law and then we figure out how to deal with it. But the same body of government that tells you have to follow the law is the same body of government that's going to put you in a position to violate it. Well, that can also equally be applied to what's going on with this vaccine. And that is, after the vaccine's been out for a while, it's going to get sued. Companies are going to get sued. They're going to be class action lawsuits because of whatever side effects or things that are going to be taken on. Here's a really great question, because Suzanne has a phrase for this, and I'm going to let you do it, because and you probably don't even know where I'm going just yet, but you will. And that is, when it comes to a lawsuit, you had said it a long time ago, don't be don't be on the front end of it. Don't be
Yeah.
the first employer in court for it.
You don't want to be the test case.
Exactly. So don't be the test case for mandating a vaccination for something that could potentially be harmful to other people as well.
As you're saying this, I pulled up that Ogletree Deacon's COVID-19 litigation tracker. And these are employment related. And, right now there's 194 lawsuits in California, 75 in Pennsylvania, 75, that's New York. Sorry. I know my geography. 88 in Florida. Like, don't think that these lawsuits aren't happening.
No.
They are happening. And because a lot of this is brand new, there's still lawsuits over things like FMLA that's been in place since 1997.
Yeah, it was 1997. You got it right.
Since 1997, there are still lawsuits. But if we're talking about it, it's real easy to go back and say, well, this case in 2004 and this case in 2014, and therefore we should do this. With all of this COVID stuff, those lawsuits that the Ogletree Deacons people are tracking are the test cases for these.
Yeah.
And they're coming at it from different states, different regions or whatever. And in 2 or 3 years, we'll be able to say, this is what it is. So when we have our next pandemic, we'll all be set. But for right now, we're not. And it's so expensive to fight a lawsuit. And, one of the things that bothers me when people say, oh, well, that company settled, therefore they must be guilty. I'm like, no, there's literally a million reasons to settle when you're not guilty.
And you guys have to realize is that, look, the Fed's going to have something to say about this. States are going to have something to say about this. Municipalities and smaller bodies of government, they're going to have something to say about it. The EEOC, the EEOC, OSHA, unions, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to have stuff to say about it. So why rush into it? Let's just take that pause and find out, okay, so what is everybody going to say about it? And then figure a plan out, because if you run into this, that's like, you got 5 seconds left on the clock. You're all the way over at the opposing end zone. And all of a sudden, you're just that close to making the one play that's going to change the nature of the game. And you snap the ball and it's the wrong play. And next thing you know it, players are getting hurt. People are falling over each other. The league is screaming at you and you're about ready to lose your coach. Why even go there, right? Best analogy I could possibly give on the fly.
And I think that's where we are. Just a whole bunch of who freaking knows. And that's where we are. And a whole bunch of, I'm sorry, fellow HR people, it's not getting easier.
No. No, matter of fact, embrace the suck and embrace the difficulty, because that's what we learn. That's what we live with. So embrace the suck.
Oh, speaking of that, I'm sitting here looking out my window and there's a guy across the street completely by himself with mask and gloves on. And it's just so weird to think if this was a year ago, I would have been like, what is this freaky guy doing? But now I'm like, oh, okay, he's going for a walk.
Yeah, right.
It's just full of change. That's just where we are. And Brenda's right. We got to embrace the suck. And this is part of HR.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, it wasn't easy before Corona.
No.
It's not like we had easy jobs and then suddenly Corona. It's always complicated because we're dealing with humans.
That's right. And you know what? It's called work for a reason. If it wasn't hard, we wouldn't call it work. We'd call it something else. So
that's right.
All right. So we've got our questions lined up for each other, because we do like to skunk each other every week, or see who can top one or the other. Do you want to ask your question first?
Okay. So here's my question. People are quitting since benefits have been cut and there are management issues. The CEO has been asking people who is still serious about staying here. What can I do? And the I is an HR manager.
Okay. So People are frustrated because their benefits are getting cut.
And management issues, and a CEO who keeps saying, who is still serious about staying here?
Well, that's a leadership issue right there. I mean, you got two things going on. You got a leadership challenge, and then you've got a benefits challenge that brands your company, and you're figuring out how you're attractive, right? So let's take the benefits one because that's going to be the easier one to deal with. You okay over there? Choking on air. Okay, so benefits questions. So you know what? This is a time right now to where companies can do one of two things, especially if they're, challenged with keeping their doors open. They can lay people off, they can do reductions in wages, or they can actually do different things such as control some of their expenses. Now, payroll is an expense, and it is usually either the first or the second line on a company's P&L. So which would you rather see get addressed, your paycheck or your benefits? I would much rather have my benefits get chopped a little bit than not have a job or not be making as much money to put food on my table. That's just me personally. But not everybody sees it that way, right?
You know, there are some people with chronic health conditions that see it the exact opposite.
Absolutely. So you have to really take a look at your data. That's an awesome point. If you're a small plan, you aren't going to have access to that information. If you are a medium to large plan, you're going to get, monthly and quarterly reports that are going to help you understand where benefit claims are hitting, right? So it kind of depends. I mean, and we talked about this actually last week at the HR Summit with Steve, is that you have to do a deep dive into your data. Now, if you don't have access to that, then, maybe your broker can work with the insurance rep and help you understand whatever information that they can gather where some of your expenses are lying. Otherwise, you're just going to have to close your eyes and throw the dart and hope that you hit the board and not the guy standing next to it holding the beer. So this is my second analogy for the day. So that's the one thing that you're going to really have to take a look at, is that you have to gauge what's important to people and then address it head on in the masses and not the minor, because, unfortunately you have, X number of the people that you have to, address. Now, the leadership side of this, that's going to be a challenge. If you have unresolved management issues, if you have a CEO that their only concern is how are people, who is leaving, I would challenge the CEO saying, why don't we actually, since we know our human capital is the number one expense, why don't we turn that around and make it into some of our greatest return on investment? Why don't we take the time that we're putting into being worried about who's leaving and task these people to say, what are we going to do to keep our company open? How are we going to generate more money and more revenue so that way we can continue to help people put food on the table and to keep our benefits up to where they are. So I think there's an opportunity to do both. And, look, not every CEO is a great leader. I'm sorry, they're just not. I know some pretty phenomenal people, phenomenal human beings, and they are some of the worst leaders on the planet. But I also know some other leaders that it's taken a long time for me to get them to know them as people. And you know what? I'd rather go work for that person. I'd rather go work for an awesome CEO who's 100% focused on the human aspect of the company, meaning the doors are open, we have money coming in, benefits are good, people are getting their paychecks. It may not be, we're not ordering nap pods, or anything like that, but I'd rather go work for the person that's going to keep my future secure and not take it so personally.
I don't know. Those nap pods sound pretty awesome, but otherwise, everybody be like, "Where's Suzanne?" Over there.
All right.
Yeah, you're right. And being a good person doesn't make you a good leader. Yeah. And this is a situation where the guy isn't a good leader.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a good leader.
Okay. Excellent. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I almost want to change my question here.
You can change it.
Okay, no, I'm not going to change it. All right. So, very high level, general overview. What is the difference between human resources and talent acquisition?
Okay, can I start with I hate the phrase talent acquisition?
Yes, because these lines get blurred. So go right on ahead.
Okay, so talent acquisition is the new hip way to talk about recruiting. And
Right.
for me, I think recruiting or talent acquisition is part of HR because it's all about the people. But there are a lot of recruiters, talent acquisition people that think they are completely separate.
Yep.
And the talent acquisition side of things, includes headhunters that are not employed by the company, external recruiters, and they're more like a sales and marketing type function rather than being a human resources function that takes care of the day to day, because theoretically the recruiter finds the candidate, plops them in your lap, and then walks away. But I don't like that model at all, because recruiting is such an integral part of human resources. And first of all, it's how the people see it. When people talk about HR, they frequently think about recruiters because that is the one HR person that everyone's had contact with. There are a lot of people that can go years and years without ever talking to an employee relations person or a business partner, but everybody has talked with a recruiter, and that's who they see as the face of HR. And so that's really one of those things. And to get back to why I hate the term talent acquisition is because to me that sounds like we just go off and we pluck people off a shelf like we were grocery shopping. I want an accountant and I want a marketing manager. Oh, look, here we go. Put them in my cart, go through the checkout. We got it. Whereas recruiting is you really have to work with the people to get them to want to come with you. And it's not talent acquisition. It is maybe talent recruiting, but I hate the term talent acquisition. Yeah. So for me, they're different branches of the same organization. And recruiters in my mind should not only be recruiting, but should be working with the managers to plan for the future and to create job descriptions and job postings. And look, they should be part of the succession planning discussion, and all of that. Because if I'm a good recruiter, then I know my area. So when you're saying, okay, well, in 3 years, we're going to need this, then I need to start building those relationships with people in that community to be able to be prepared in that 3 years when you're going to need the position, or giving advice on people within the company that, okay, we're going to need this position filled in 3 years. Who is there that we can train? And I really think that the recruiters should be playing a role in that. As I said, there are people that think that they should be totally different and that recruiting is separate from HR.
Yep.
And I don't know if that really answered the question. It was just more of an opportunity for me to rant about
Perfect
talent acquisition.
Perfect rant. Love it. Love it. Love it. So we are going to start shutting this down a little bit, but before we do, I know because this hour flew by. I want to share with you guys our groups. You want to go first?
Sure. So I have a group on Facebook, Evil HR Lady, and we talk about all things HR and business and memes, lots of HR memes. And every once in a while, somebody complains that why isn't this a private group so that I can really share what I'm doing? And it's not a private group. But fortunately, if you want a private group, Linda can talk about her group.
There just so happens to be one. So, and that is the Next Gen Women in Facebook group. Excuse me, Next Gen Women in HR group on Facebook. And and it's exactly what we are. We are a private group. You have to answer questions before we let you in, because we want to make sure that, yes, in fact, you really are a real HR person. We've shooed out several people. We only have one vendor that's actually in the group right now, and that's tied to my super secret squirrel type of project. He reaches out to you guys, and he's provided an opportunity for you to take advantage of some pretty awesome technology that's coming down the pike, but I can't talk about it, only he can. So anyway, But we do
taunts
a lot.
us with their
Yeah,
secret
right. We do a
project.
lot of things. We do a lot of announcements. We've got right now. Actually, I hope you don't mind me doing this, but I do want to share this with you guys. I'm gonna flip us back over to our normal view. There we go. Hi. I'm in the process. The order has been placed and these will ship out in the first week of December. But this is the best HR planner on the planet for 2021. It covers a ton of information. It gives you a listing of all the different types of tasks that HR people in different positions employ, their knowledge, their skills, their attributes. You also have a list of all of the different laws that a company would need to adhere to by company size, being employees. There's also some information on there about government contracting as well. You've got a 12-month overview calendar as well as a full 12 months planner, real planner that you can write in. You've got a list of U.S. holidays and observances. You've got also information in here on, how to do certain things that came up last year that people, when we were talking about this, didn't understand. We also have a year-end checklist that's in there and a list of, I want to say it's like over 60 different resources that you can tap into. And it's on a hidden website just for you guys so that you can find it if you're on the fly. So if you guys want to order a copy of this, you can. We're doing a pre-order reduced rate right now for $20. It'll retail at $25 come November 26th on Thanksgiving Day. But you can go to BrendaTheHRLady.com and go ahead and click on shop at the top and order your copy today because those are going to be going out real soon. So thank you for letting me do that. Yeah, it's a neat book. I have to figure out how to send one to Switzerland. So
that would be good.
Yeah. All righty, guys. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us again. We're going to flash our contact information up one last time so you can find us. The dog has woken up. So that means we got to go out here in a second.
We don't control our own schedule. It's all
No,
the dog.
we don't. No, and here he's about ready to jump up. Okay, good. He's not. So, all right, guys, have a wonderful rest of your week. Next week it's Thanksgiving, and you know what? Go into the week with a grateful heart. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.